Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 44 of the D.M.C podcast with your host today, myself, Adam Rigby, and the undeniable force, the triple threat, the delightfully, wonderfully, lovely, beautiful Dr Bex Bell, back for part 2 of our chats. Bex, how are you?
Yay, kia ora Adam, kia ora everybody listening and watching. I am very well, thank you. I'm
looking
doing well.
looking lovely today.
Unleash the beast. I've taken out the hair.
Same.
Things are going to get wild when the hair's out, eh? You know, things are going to get wild.
Nothing wrong with wild. That's good news. That's good news. We had a quick chat, obviously prior, and the last chat we had, incredibly popular, and a huge amount of downloads and listens, which is great. So thank you to those who took the time to listen and watch and really enjoyed our chat. Thank you to those that gave the feedback too, because there was some great feedback. People coming into me, especially at the gym, captive audience, and saying how much they loved it, how it was their favorite, and also the timing, how great the timing was. And that was probably an indication that it's something that people wanted to hear, right? Permission to feel what they needed to feel, and just sit in those emotions and accept it. So on the back of that, just love to continue the chat, because what was great for me is getting having a break, having a few month or so break from 2021 and getting into 2022. Just the old grey matter and conversational superpowers takes a while to recharge. So it also highlighted to me the importance of continuing to chat, not just coming out of your cave every month or so, and but continuing to chat. And lately I was fortunate enough to catch up with the incredible guys from the High Frequency Club, Shanae and Marwin, and if you haven't checked those guys out, do that. Obviously sung your praises, Dr Bex Bell, but they we sat down and had a little bit of a one-on-one and talking about stuff and myself and what I did, which is always difficult, talking about yourself. Yes. And also about the challenges. And one thing that really sprung to mind, and again I guess harking back to the challenging times and the place where we land, right, where we are today is completely different to where we were a year ago, 2 years ago. And what I was discussing with them is the continual process of just reinventing versions of myself, and accepting responsibility and accepting that I have the power to do that, which I think is a big shift, right? Which is a big mindset shift. Have you got any advice or tools around that? I mean, a lot of it's letting go of potentially some of the things that are holding us back in terms of limitations. But is there any advice in terms of assisting people in making that transition and just stepping up and stepping in to the latest version, the 2.0 or even the 4.0?
Yeah. Oh, there's so much, isn't there? But I think that, everything, when we're talking about change of any kind, I think the first thing it starts with is belief, really. Belief that you deserve to have the thing that you might want to have, or to be the thing that you want to be. I think a lot of change that we want to do we can sort of self-sabotage if we're not starting with a belief, a really, embodied belief, like actually feeling that belief to be true, that we deserve to have that particular change. I know I've been caught up in that a lot myself, that fully embracing that we deserve to have, the most successful business we might want to have, or to have the physique we might want to have, or whatever a meaningful life means for us. It does start with that belief, and that can be a lot of groundwork in and of itself, just being able to embrace that and truly believe it for yourself. I think one other thing that's really important is I think we've talked about this, Adam, is honoring that it's okay to be where you're at now and still want to progress somehow. I think so often we think that those two things can't go together, that we're sort of, we think that if we want to be better somehow, that we can't also accept how we are right now, and we can't celebrate that. But we can. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive. So I guess the training is in celebrating where we're at now and all the many experiences and sometimes painful learning that it's taken to get to that place, and be really excited about the version 4.0 or whatever of us that's still to come. And, being grateful that we are where we're at now, but also being grateful that we can always grow into something more. So something, and by more, I don't necessarily mean ticking off 10 million more achievements. What I mean by more is almost coming closer and closer and closer and more closely aligned to who we are. Climbing out from underneath all that crap, like all the limiting stories that we tell ourselves. And I call it coming home, that sense of coming home, like coming home to yourself. I just think it's a lot about unlearning, isn't it? So climbing out from underneath all the stuff that's getting in our way and all the stuff we've learned about, shoulds and shouldn'ts and musts and, I should be doing this or doing that or not doing this or not doing that. Just clearing it away and coming home to ourselves and aligning things again. I think, I don't even know where I was going with that. See, wild here, wild response. But that would be some advice. So beliefs are huge, working on those and really getting to the bottom of those, what beliefs are helping me, which beliefs are not helping me or getting in my way, and giving ourselves permission to grow and celebrating where we're at and getting excited about where we can go all at the same time. Those two things can go together.
I love that term though, coming home, coming home.
Yeah.
And there's so much comfort in that. Do you think, I mean, we talk about, I think we chatted about previously about comparison being the thief of joy, and there's so many things to compare ourselves with, and we're bombarded daily by a whole lot of stuff, where we should be, what we should be doing. Also, yes, the battle between generations about how they did things and how we should be doing what they did. That's not necessarily the case. And then our generation after us doing stuff that we could never imagine, which can be inspiring. It depends on how you look at it. But do you think, as a result of all these pressures, we're just too fucking hard on ourselves?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's just that's why I love this idea of coming home, because I do truly believe that our natural state is one of confidence, is one of being empowered. And I think the most beautiful evidence of that is when we look at small children.
Yeah.
They know how to own themselves. They know, they don't, an example I love is when they're learning how to walk, when they start failing and they're not doing it right, they don't just give up. They don't say, oh, well, walking's not for me. They get up and they try again. So, our natural state is to do the things that we love, is to, shine just in our usness, just like children do. But I think we just get bombarded by so much information and pressures. And of course, social media and just the general mass media, plays into this. But it's good too. There are good bits, but we're just 24/7. There are opportunities for comparison that there didn't used to be many years ago, when life was sort of a little bit more simpler and we just went about our 9 to 5 and watched a bit of telly, ate some meat and veg for tea and went to bed and then did it tomorrow. There's just this stuff around us all the time. And unfortunately, we have brains that are naturally wired to do that comparison. Because we all want to have good social standing in the tribe, if we think about it from, again, back in the day, evolutionarily speaking. So that's a natural tendency for us, which can mean that we're extremely hard on ourselves. And I see it all the time, and with coaching clients, and again in my own lived experience, I'm shocking at it. It's really something I'm personally starting to dig deep into, because I'm sick of it. You just get sick of it. It's like, this is not a good spend of my energy and my time to be beating myself up. Yeah.
So how do we break out of that? How do we because it's preconditioned. I mean, I guess, as you say, back in the day, there was so much more innocence around our everyday living because we weren't bombarded by information. And so a lot of the stuff that we learned was by process of investigation, was by doing. Do you think that's robbing us of something that's inherently human and actually providing massive amounts of limitation, because the knowledge is thrown at us and it's from a variety of sources? The 4 agreements, which is one of the books I've talked to you about, there's a 5th agreement, and it's learn to listen but be skeptical, because what you're hearing is a person's version of the truth. It's like any story. So the stuff that we're bombarded with isn't necessarily the fact, or isn't necessarily relevant to you. Do you think that could be the case, that we are actually getting robbed of something that is inherently human and helping us grow as a human being and as a person? That's been taken away, so that affects the way we think and act?
Yeah, well, I think that when it's like, whoa, deep is good. I think that it can push us towards just getting stuck in our own head.
Yeah.
I think that's the upshot, is, it's so much thinky, and, less of the getting out and just doing. And I think we can, we assume sometimes that we need to think about stuff more, but actually we just need to get out and do and experience. And that is where the growth and the learning comes from. But yeah, I think it can push us towards, what do we call it? Paralysis by analysis, when there's so much information going on. And I 100% have to monitor this myself. I do it myself because I'm naturally a thinker, an analytical brain, and I start living in my head instead of actually being in my life, which is a big work on. And because, at the end of the day, I actually want to be present in my life because I only get one. And so again, I think it's about asking ourselves that question all the time. Is this a good spend of my energy? If I'm thinking about stuff, analyzing, just absorbing information all the time, is that a good spend of my energy? Is it serving my well-being? If I'm not actually carving out space to just get a little bit quiet and be still and actually tune into me and my information, my intuition, my vision that I have for where I want to go. I think that's really important, actually, just creating that space, which is hard to do when we're go, do, information overload and so on.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to listen to others at times, but it's more important to listen to yourself. And I think we lose that, the little voice in our head. For me, and again, discussing with the other guys, a tool that I use is just making sure that I have time to think. It's thinking time, rather than letting the thinking or the thought process overwhelm other things that I'm doing. Or other opportunities. So for me, it's walking or riding or going out solo time, where I'm stimulated by nature and movement, and the chemicals that are flowing through the body are positive in terms of endorphins. And certainly sitting down with a gin is probably not the best time to go deep into thought, but it's
okay too.
Yeah, at times. I saw a wonderful thing, actually, in reference to what you've just said. I saw this. Lewis Howes is a motivational guru dude, and he posted this morning. Most of the anxiety and problems you create are coming from your thoughts. When you learn to calm your mind, that's when you start to calm your life.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
Amen. And especially in relevance to our chat today, I was like, holy shit. I just think it's wonderful how, when you put yourself in a position, because in a different mindset, in a different time, I may have scanned past that and thought nothing of it. But because I've opened myself up to the opportunity and frequency to think a different way and challenge my thoughts in a different way, then stuff like this is the stuff that sticks. Not a picture of someone on a motorcycle or flexing or deadlifting some obscene amount of weight, but this stuff, like this stuff, mastering your thoughts. But it's really it's the how, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the how. Yeah. Is it?
Yeah.
I mean, do we do that by discussion? Do we do it by conversation? Is it just, are there specific tools, or is there science involved in actually sitting down, enabling us to process this? Like I say, I do it through movement because I feel it's a positive space for me to process this. What are your thoughts around that in terms of a valid or legitimate process that people could potentially follow to enable them to open up this heaven of opportunity in our thoughts?
Yeah. So I think we would have talked about last time that, the first step, and it sounds so cliche and people might switch off now, but it truly is awareness. So we cannot master our thoughts until we're aware of what our thoughts are.
Yeah.
And the training, and there's so much evidence behind this. What I'm effectively talking about is mindfulness. So watching your own mind, paying attention to what your mind is doing. And this is not something that necessarily comes naturally, because so much of what happens in our mind is on autopilot, right? And it has to be that way, because if we had to consciously think about everything we did, our freaking brain would explode on the wall, because there's so much shit going on in there.
Sure.
Like, imagine if we had to think about how to breathe or how to make our heart work. So, or how to drive a car. Like, if we had to literally think about that when we got in the car, we wouldn't be able to do anything else. So because we're wired to be so much on autopilot, we have to train the conscious process of watching our thoughts, of stepping out from them and actually listening to what they're saying. So what Lewis Howes is effectively saying in that quote is, train yourself to do that. Because when you start actually noticing what's happening, then you can ask the question of, okay, that's interesting, getting curious about what's going on in your mind. And rather than, is this thought kind of, good or bad or true or false? All we need to ask is it serving me? If I buy into what this is saying, is that helping me live my best life or not? And that is such a helpful place to start for anybody wanting to increase the skill, because it absolutely is a skill. It's just like learning a new language. It's like learning to ride a bike. It's just helping to work with your mind and actually be more conscious about what it's doing and what thoughts are flowing through it. And a really good place to start is just training yourself, even if you wanted to, for 5 minutes a day, something achievable, put your timer on and just sit. And don't force yourself to think about anything. Just listen and tune into what is flowing through your mind. And you might want to write it down. It might be, I'm really freaked out about that presentation I have to do at work today. What am I going to have for dinner? Oh, I need to remember to ring the plumber. This is what our mind does. It jumps around. But the very act of just noticing what it's doing is the first step, and then being able to do something with those thoughts. Sort of, start to put the ones that are unhelpful to one side and bring the ones that are helpful and feel good and help it, allow us to move forward. We can pull those closer to us. That's the first step. And then, of course, we can get into the whole idea of rewiring, beliefs and thoughts and, challenging our thoughts, reframing our thoughts. But the first step is simply to be aware. And that's training. That's a practice, just like going to the gym and lifting weights to build muscle. We have to train the practice of watching our mind to strengthen that skill.
And the brain will allow us to do it. I mean, the brain is the most complex, busiest highway you could ever imagine, right? And again, there's so many things happening at the same time. And for me, being a visual person, I think that the tool that I use there is I can actually visualize saying, okay, if a thought comes, I can go, okay, I'll move it here, because that's when I know I'm going to do my thinking time. So maybe I'll park that and I'll think about that when I'm in a great space to think about it. But I can action this. It's like a massive. I have a visual way of really exploring that works. That works for me. I don't have a deep dark cavern that I walk down a you know, 30 dark stairs with a torch and then lock these thoughts in a safe. I think it's important to put them in an accessible place so you can process them and not hang on to anything. And the way I was explaining to the guys, you know, I'm a deep thinker, but I like to think that I'm not an overthinker. So I like to have a conclusion to thoughts, or at least break them down into achievable parts, where if I can't come to a conclusion or I can't figure stuff out, then I can actually break it and chapter 2 it, or chapter 3 it, or chapter 4 it. And do you think there's unnecessary pressure for us just to, I have to solve it, I have to have it all figured out, I've got to be on top of this?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's why there's so much stress around, because the essence of life really is that the majority of the time it's unpredictable and uncontrollable. Which can feel like, you know, but that's why we get stressed, because we're often trying to predict what is unpredictable and control what is uncontrollable. And so one of the things that I've found really helpful is just a word that I like to remember for myself, which is surrender.
Yeah.
So what would happen if I just surrendered to figuring out as much as feels sort of productive? And then if I hit a wall, why not just surrender to the rest of it? You know, why not just embrace the fact that, you know what, I can do as much thinking as I like, but something might happen tomorrow that throws it all off, like the plan just goes out the window. And I think that COVID has actually been really good training ground for us to practice that kind of ability to pivot, as they say. But, you know, absolutely, because I think once again, if we are just kind of turning those mental wheels all the time, you know, and trying to figure everything out, what aren't we doing? What are we being pulled away from in our life? What actions are we not taking that could be moving us forward and actually showing us the way forward anyway, through action and learning? I think, again, it's just another form of pressure that we put on ourselves. And I think I often talk with coaching clients who are reaching out because they have got a really important decision in their life to make. And they're freaking out about it because they're like, but what do I choose? You know, do I stay or do I go in this job? Do I stay or do I go in this relationship? And quite a lot of our work together is often, hey, what about buying into the idea that there isn't actually a right or a wrong decision here? You know, you can't get this wrong. All you can do is move forward with the information that you have right now, move forward with how you're feeling right now, and see what happens. And if it doesn't feel good and aligned with who, you know, with that kind of gut feeling you have, then you change tack, you try something different. So it's sort of surrendering to life almost as like one big frickin' experiment, because it is. Because who the hell knows what the answers are? No one. Not even me and you, Adam. We don't know. We're all just figuring it out. Like we truly are, you know.
And isn't that the wonderful thing about life, though? So many things unexplained, so many things unexplored, so many things yet to discover for us as humans, even though people may have been through it before. I think I love that about life. And for me, curiosity is the one thing and that's what I love about my wife too, curious. And it opens up adventure and opportunity and possibility, you know, and a little bit of fear, and a little bit of fear is okay. Not so great to make decisions when you're scared, but definitely keeps you on your toes, alert and alive, and keeps you learning. I think for me too, you know, the thing that has helped me process thoughts is actually conversations with others as well. So learning actually the impact of saying my thoughts out loud, having someone that I can trust, and realizing the positive impact that has. So it's enabled me to actually open that little valve that lets that stuff out. And, you know, I guess for some people, if they don't feel they have someone they can trust or talk to, I think you start the process by just talking, right? You don't have to go deep and dark straight out of the first conversation, like, what are you thinking? You know, what are your thoughts on life and death and religion? And you don't have to go deep and dark. Just start the process of chatting, right? Start the process of chatting. or I guess, thoughts on seeking professional advice or help, given you are, I guess, professional advice or help?
Yeah. So what are my thoughts on it?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's there's some really important things, sort of myths to bust about doing that, because and I've felt it myself that, when I say to people, oh, I'm going to see a psychologist, they're sort of like, oh, but there's nothing wrong with me. So it's just embracing that it is such a good thing to do. It's such a healthy thing to do. And it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you, that you're deficient somehow, that you need to go and talk to some professional. It's a wonderful thing to do. I cannot rate it enough in terms of sharing what's inside here with a neutral person. So there's somebody that's completely objective. They're neutral. They're not going to just throw advice down your throat. They're just going to create space for you to talk, and they will listen. And they will guide, yes, but I think that's such a beautiful gift, and something to enjoy is just emptying this out, because it can get very busy and chaotic in here. And yes, there are tools and skills that we can build for ourselves, but you're right that just sharing that with somebody else has massive benefit. And it's also about connecting with somebody else, even if they are a neutral professional that we're actually paying to connect with. It's still incredibly valuable. That's a massive part of our well-being as human beings, is having connection with other people. And I think there's what's that quote that's something about a problem shared is a problem halved.
Yeah.
As soon as it's out of here and into here, out in the open, it instantly feels more manageable. Right. So I really couldn't recommend it enough. And I mean, sometimes it takes a few goes. You might kind of go and sort of connect with one professional and think, nah, but then you might move on and find the one that clicks with you. That's the beauty of having lots of professionals. There's all different personalities and approaches that people take and how they would work with you. So it is about finding the right person for you. And it's okay if the first person you see, or the second or third, doesn't quite gel with you. Just keep exploring. Ask around. Who do you guys go and talk to? It's nothing to be ashamed of if you wanted to do that. Yeah.
Why are we so shit scared of judgment? Is it that harking back, we were scared of being shunned from the tribe, of being singled out? Is it? What makes us so shit scared of being judged by others? Is it just acceptance?
In general, or in terms of like seeking help?
Well, I mean, in reference to this, of course, but I mean, it flows through every aspect of our life, doesn't it? Not just, there's judgment for all things, or there appears to be judgment at stages of our life for all things. And mental health is one of these things that people are incredibly afraid of just asking for help, because of the judgment, the stigma attached to it. And that could go through a whole lot of things, being judged for a whole lot of reasons. But why are we so shit scared of it?
Yeah, judgment. I mean, I think at the end of the day, the way that we all want to be loved. We all want to be connected to others, and we all want to be accepted. And so we are like, the fear dials are turned up really high on, but what if we do something or say something that means we can't get those things? And like you say, yes, there is a very kind of biological basis to that. We do have to be mindful of our biology, that's what we're wired for. So yes, it does create a lot of fear. But I think the thing is, you can work with fear. Fear is just a thing. It doesn't have to determine anything. We can still move through that fear and come out the other side of it. And if we all, that's kind of what I'm essentially doing in my coaching and in the work that I do, is helping people to not live in that fear or get stuck in that fear. Because when we are stuck in it, and when we're so worried about judgment, that's when our life becomes smaller, right? Rather than living our biggest life, the one that's most fulfilling to us. There's actually a wonderful book called it sounds a bit morbid, but the Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. Have you read that, Adam?
I've heard about it, but I haven't read it. Maybe write that down.
Yeah, it's written by a woman called Bronnie Ware, as in Ware, and I think she's Australian, and she is or was a palliative carer. And so obviously she'd sat with, hundreds, probably, I don't know, maybe even thousands of people that had reached the end of their life and were reflecting back on what it all meant, what was awesome, but also what their regrets were. And the number one regret was, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life that was true to me. So, I mean, that says it all, doesn't it? That we get so hooked in fear about judgment from other people, or what another person I've heard calls FOPO, fear of other people's opinions.
Yeah.
I love that. It's, Michael Gervais is a high performance psychologist. He that's his term, FOPO. We get so hooked in that we end up living a life that we think other people want us to live, but we get to the end of our life and think, gosh darn it, I wish I'd done all these things differently, or I wish I hadn't just, worked my ass off and not been present with my family. Like, so I am really passionate about, like, let's not get to the end of our life and have that same regret. Let's just accept that, yes, there will be fear of judgment from other people, normal, natural, biological, whatever, but we don't have to buy into it. And the way that we don't is by coming back again to us. And what is it that I value? What is it that makes a rich, a full, a meaningful life to me? And I think that those are such important questions that we need to ask ourselves constantly. And on the daily, we want to be checking in with, okay, that's what it means to me. Well, am I doing those things? Am I creating space to have those things? In what ways am my behavior in line with that or not in line with that? What do I need to tweak? And it's being compassionate to ourselves that, if a meaningful life to us means, quitting that job and going over here and doing this job, then, yes, we will fear other people's judgments. And yes, people will have judgments about, don't do that. Why on earth would you leave a massive salaried job to go do a startup or whatever? But it's just part of the process. It's just how it rolls. And again, being aware of that, but then choosing what to do with it, kind of like we were talking about before with learning how to watch your thoughts and then choosing which ones you want to push away or pull closer. That's all part of the process.
Interesting with the checking in, because a lot of people get to that point. And it's more, we're prone or more likely to check out rather than check in, like find a way to escape a situation rather than sit deep in it. And we discussed that last week, about just sitting and allowing the emotion in the moment to actually flow through you and get a real feel for it, where it sits, allow the body to process it, the brain to process it, and give yourself time to try and figure it out, the complex puzzle that it is as it surges through the body. Do you think, are we just in too much of a hurry to try and sort this shit out? Do we, because we're instant gratification for stuff? If we can't figure something out in 3 minutes, do we deem that as a massive failure? Because our view is, we're in a hurry to get everywhere, right? Do we just not accept that these things take time?
I think that's such a good point. And I know that a lot of people listening or watching will be, in the world of fitness. And I don't know about you guys, but I have certainly many times myself fallen off the wagon with fitness because I might have decided, okay, I don't feel good. I would like to lose a couple of kgs. So I work my butt off for like 2 weeks. And then I'm like, well, it's not working yet. So then I self-sabotage, go and eat everything I can find, and then feel shit that I have to start the cycle all over again. And that's exactly because of what you've just said, Adam, which is that, stuff does take time. But I think we do live in a now culture, which, we want a pizza, sweet. Get on your phone, open your app, hit a button, and in 10 minutes, the pizza will be at your door. That's how the world rolls. So I think it reinforces that message that things should happen quickly, and that if they're not, we're failing, or that it's not a worthwhile venture or whatever. But I think if we look at the world's most successful people, none of them are overnight successes. None of them. It took years. And as someone with their own business who, to be honest, over the last few months I've been quite sort of down in the dumps, like, what am I doing? I don't have a plan. Where am I going? Who am I? Identity crisis, I've had to remember that. It's like, well, just, your business is quite new. In the meantime, you've also become a mum. Like, give yourself a freaking break, man. And then I read about other people who are like, oh, well, it took me a couple of decades to get to this point, and that's kind of the reality check. Like, okay, be kind to yourself if things are taking longer than your ideal timeline, but it doesn't mean you're not getting there. It doesn't mean you're not making progress. How can you not be making progress if you're taking steps every day towards what matters to you?
Yeah, pump the brakes, saying it's okay to deviate too, because plans can change. And if you're smart enough to have a plan A, you're obviously smart enough to determine what a plan B may look like. But definitely you should have a long game when it comes to life. Expect to live a long, beautiful, wonderful, challenging life, rather than move from day to day. I think that's one of the things. And people do ask me all the time, that I think wisdom does come from age, and I think it's as we chatted about at the start of the potty, reinventing, the opportunity to reinvent myself and learn a lesson, and that's critical too. Learning a lesson, not just sitting repeating the same mistakes, accepting that we do have the power to change. If you're in a situation that you just feel like it's not you, I think a lot of people sit in that. They just feel it's the right thing to do, but it's not right for them.
Exactly. And that's a good sign that we've internalized other people's values and standards. And it's time to come back to ours and actually, do some simple values work. You can look this stuff up on the internet, like, values exercises. Come back to you. Like, what are you trying to come home to? What is important to you? Because that's exactly right, that it's very easy to internalize everybody else's ideas about what we should be doing. And but it will always feel niggly, like there's just something not quite right, or like someone said to me the other day, a client, I feel terrible for saying this because I've really got nothing to complain about, really, but is this it? In my life, is this actually it? So that's a great example, or a great indicator, nothing to be ashamed of. It's like, oh, there's a golden learning nugget here. And it's saying to me, I've got to a point in my life where maybe I've been doing stuff because of maybe expectation, or maybe out of fear that, I won't have any money if I do something different, and maybe I just need to come back to me. And, what is it? What is it? If I died tomorrow, which, let's face it, happens to many people, we just don't know, what would my last day on earth, what would I want to be doing? And how can I get more of that in my life right now, like without having to overhaul everything? Just little opportunities to do the things that light me up the most. Giving ourselves permission to do that stuff.
Like in those massive moments of change where we feel as though, fuck, okay, I definitely feel as though I need to do something. I feel as though there's nothing more. Do you think, I feel as though there's more for me. Do you think we have too much attachment for, or are too concerned about others over ourselves? In terms of, the classic people pleaser, like we're afraid of hurting potentially the people around us in order to take that step to move on to find the best version of ourselves. In some cases, people definitely have to step out of their circumstance, and in some cases, not all cases, people have to step away from people, right? As part of that circumstance. In a lot of cases, it's a matter of uplifting those around you and including the people on that journey, and that's the type of people you want to be with too, right? That are like, you fucking got this, let's go for it, I support you. And that's the cool thing. If I wanted to change, do a massive zag in my lifetime, I know that Justine would be like, go for it. You can do anything you want to do.
Yeah.
And I think in reference to that, the experience for me in terms of reinvention or reinvigorating another chapter in life, there are some wonderful moments and opportunities and people out there, and you can't actually find those opportunities, moments, without taking those steps and without having those conversations. So again, chatting to people, the deep and meaningful conversations where you're expressing your thoughts, and then how many times do we talk to someone and they go, yeah, I've got 3 degrees and I've got a successful business. You go, fuck, I could never do that. I could never do that. The opportunity's there for all of us, right? And it can be circumstance. There can be huge limitations, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. But do you believe that there's opportunity for everybody? Do you think that still exists in the modern framework?
Yes, I certainly do. And can I just side note, T-shirt, People Pleasers Anonymous, by the way. Remember last time?
Yes.
I had a T-shirt and
yes, you did.
So this is how committed I am to the cause of, accepting that it's okay to have our own needs and say no and have boundaries. But yeah, I totally believe there's possibility. I mean, I think it's really important. I'm saying this as, a privileged person sitting here right now saying, oh yeah, there's opportunities for everybody, because I am not on the bones of my ass, struggling to feed my family. And so I really want to acknowledge every time I say things like that I'm not being sort of Pollyanna-ish about the realities of life, that, sometimes people aren't at the top of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs because they're down here just trying to frickin' survive. That is a very real thing. But I think despite circumstances, there is always possibility that we can move forward, that we can grow into something different. I think that's what you would call quintessential growth mindset is, yes, I have the capacity to change with hard work, with good strategies, and with mentoring and help and support from other people. That is the essence of growth mindset. And I think that life goes much better if we can embrace that idea, as opposed to a fixed mindset, which says, I'm good at this, I'm just not good at that. I'm not a maths person, I'm not a creative person, I'm not a sporty person. As soon as we say I can't, well, we can't. Or, I'm not such and such, well, we won't be, because we've told our brain it's not a possibility for us.
Yeah, because we have every profession, we have a firm picture in our minds cemented of what that should look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know? and it might be from soap opera. It might be from that might be from watching Shortland Street.
Yeah.
So athletic endeavor as well. So that can be off-putting as well. And actually I talked a couple of weeks ago about tall poppy syndrome as well.
Mm.
And it seems to be prevalent and relevant. And I have massive amounts of respect for anybody that's at the top of their field, and appreciating the mahi, like the hard work that it takes just to get to the top, just to get near the top, to stay at the top or to be at the absolute top. Unbelievable, the amount of commitment, the daily challenge. You have to make it your life.
Yes, you do.
Obsessive at times, right? Mm-hmm. Obsessive at times. And so anybody up there that is at the top of their game, and it's education and it's sport and it's everything. You can think of anything. Even it takes work to be a good human being as well, right?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it takes work.
Yeah.
Everything takes work. So acknowledging that. And I got out of the conversation with Ma. We had an amazing moment. We were talking about purpose versus mission, a mission versus purpose. And I was describing how what purpose is and how we're basically swimming in it. It's hard to explain when you're just part of it. It's like it's a river that just flows through you. It's part of you, and you're part of the purpose. And we were all overwhelmed with emotion. In fact, there was just this pause where unexpectedly and unprovoked, Owen had to stop, and I thought it was a lovely moment. And I was like, that's purpose. And I followed up with it saying, bro, if you're truly doing something that you love, right, and you are taking every opportunity to be authentically you in those moments, then the thought of imposter syndrome can't exist. Then and I thought that had such gravity, because acknowledgement, like when you get to the top of the field, amongst all the tall poppies that people want to take you down, there's another channel with the imposter. Should I be here? Acknowledging the work, the mahi, the effort, the attention, the time, the sacrifice that goes into it. It has to be because you love it, right? It has to be.
Yes.
It has to be. So for all those that are either getting hacked by tall poppy, it's by people who don't understand how hard you work, right? It's people will never get it, and they don't have to. What matters is you being true to yourself. By people who are maybe suffering from imposter syndrome in those situations, if you've been authentic to yourself and you've been 100% you and doing something that you love, it just can't exist. There's no space for it. How do we encourage people to take that next step? I've kind of segued quite a bit, but I'm guessing the step for me, in my mind, the logical step is, you're sitting there, you're seeing a lot of people being successful doing things that you think they could never do. You've thought about it enough to say, I need to change. I want to change. I have to change. What's the next step? It's not like the Nike. It's not like the Nike advert. It's not like just do it.
Just do it.
Is it just one? Is it like we've discussed? Just talk to someone.
Yeah, you can talk to some. I mean, the cool thing is with the people that have been successful, they are such a valuable learning resource. Like and you might even find that, you actually, scrolling, coming back to comparison, scrolling social media, I've done it myself. You see people and you feel really envious of them, actually, like just straight out jealous of like what they've accomplished and what their, maybe their business looks like. But they are, again, it's like, but why am I jealous of this person? And it's typically because they've got something that you admire, or they have they're showing a quality that you admire. So that is like, cool, well, I can learn from that because they followed a process to get that thing, and maybe I can follow that process too. Because again, coming back to essential growth mindset, it's not about them being better than us in any way or having something we don't. We all have the ability to grow and learn. So learn from them, learn from the best, however you can. Maybe it's, personally, or if it's somebody famous, read up on them, read up on their story. That can be progress in itself. But in terms of like, what do we do if we want to change? I'll always say to people, get really clear on your why for a start. With just like you talked about, the purpose behind something is so powerful. That is why we see superhuman acts like a parent lifting a freaking car off a child in an accident, because there's purpose behind it. Is such emotion is such a powerful driver. And when you know your why, your what is always more impactful.
Yeah.
It's so important to know that. So check in with yourself about why you want to change in the first place. Is it because something is personally deeply meaningful to you and just makes you feel like I've come home? Or is it because you're looking for validation from someone? Is it that you're trying to do something so that you finally feel worthy enough? Are you hustling for your enoughness? That's what Brené Brown would say. I love that. That hustle, when you get caught in the hustle for enoughness, and it never quite feels quite aligned, and the change never quite comes off. It's because the purpose is misaligned. So check in with the purpose, and get really clear for yourself on why it is that you think you need to create this change. And then the last part is, I'll quote myself, I made this up. Start small to get started at all. Start small to get started at all. We think we have to overhaul everything, or our whole life, or, our whole life is doomed, so we need to change our job, relationships, health and fitness, everything. No, just pick somewhere to start and peel the layers back to its tiniest, simplest next step or first step. Do I need to talk to somebody? What simple behavior could I start doing or stop doing? Do I need to track my thoughts and my mood for a week just to see what's actually going on in my mind? Just pick somewhere to start. And, sometimes hiring someone like me, like a coach, is really helpful in that process, because again, some of these things are foreign to us about how do I listen to my thoughts? I don't know how to do that. Or, I'm happy to start somewhere small, but I don't know where that is. So I need someone to help me with that. But that's, I think, starting small and really dialing back those ridiculous expectations that we can place on ourselves, that, we should be able to create this change in 5 minutes. It is going to take time. It won't be a linear journey. I think that's another thing. We expect that, if we start off well, we'll just keep going well, and it will be, an upward linear journey, when really it goes like this. Back and forth, up and down, round and round, roller coasters. And so it's embracing and expecting things to go forwards, then backwards, then up and down, and we'll be confused, and we might wonder what on earth we're doing. But that's all part of the process too. It's all part of the complexity and messiness of life. So I think, again, we've got to stop trying to control the uncontrollable or predict the unpredictable. It's messy. Yeah. It's just how it is. But there's adventure in that messiness, like you said earlier, Adam.
I love the messiness, especially for a person who likes the tidy. I need it.
I have to lean into the messiness, because, man, it's like, but where's my plan about the next step? I need 10 steps figured out first before I can move. But no, that's another thing. Like, you don't have to have a perfectly formed plan to move forward. You just don't. You can't. Like, it's like trying to research the end of the internet. Like, you can't figure it all out right now. You just sort of have to move, assess, make a little plan, a mini plan, a small step, and then move, and then see what happens, and then make the next little step. Yeah. Iterative.
Isn't it great as you mature, like you get to know your own habits and traits, and you can make fun of them when you find yourself doing something that you've always done, and you just laugh about it and sharing it with others as well. Like for me, walking into a fitness studio and not having the instructor bike completely straight does my head in. I've gotten over the fact that not every bike can be straight. That's okay. I've let that go. I've let that slide, peeps. That's okay. You're off the hook. But for my bike specifically, it has to be, and I chuckle over it. I think it's wonderful. And again, just getting to learn my own traits and getting to learn and love myself and laugh at myself, I think is
laugh at yourself.
Gosh, I have to.
Yeah, exactly. That's a massive sort of piece of advice. Laugh at yourself.
Well, we're bloody funny. I mean,
yeah. Well,
let's
you're really
face it. Funny looking. Just high on life. I mean, why not smile and laugh? Why not? Life's full of too many sad faces already. So if I can
absolutely
make better by just smiling or being happy, that's just who I am. It took me a while, a few iterations to get here. So people persist with the reiterations, with the 2.0. It doesn't matter how many versions you feel as though you need to recreate yourself. Eventually, you'll get to a space where you'll know yourself and you'll be able to laugh at yourself. I guarantee it. I flipping guarantee it. I know we haven't got much time left, Bex, because we're the hour of power today. You've got so much going on. I do appreciate your time. Quickly, do you think we get tied into a legacy loop, like just worrying about how will I be remembered, and just forget about sort of what's happening with people? How can I impact the people now, rather than how will I impact people in 100 years? How can I? Is that? Do you think that's an issue, or I'm just? Well, throw it out there. Just throw a universal question out to Dr. Bex Bell with 2 minutes to go.
It could be. I think what that's getting at is that it's really important to sort of keep the bigger picture in mind. So to have that vision for our life, like to ask the question of, what do I want my legacy to be? I think that's a really important question to answer, whether that's professionally or personally. So, when, again, I'm going to be morbid, because I think about death quite a lot, I have to say, like maybe more than is reasonable. But I find it helps me to keep a really healthy perspective. Does this matter? Am I doing that? I have this sort of sense of urgency, because I'm like, oh, life is so short. I need to do what matters most right now, because it is short. But asking that question of, when people are speaking about me at my funeral, what types of things do I actually want them to be saying? Is it that I just achieved this laundry list of things, or do I want people to be talking about how loving I was, or how I always, no matter what I had going on, I had time for them. And when I was talking with them, I was really present with them, and I was just me, I just owned myself. I was authentic. And, what is it that you want that legacy to be? And then rather than just getting caught in that, like, the long-term legacy, how can you bring that to the present moment and live it now? What ways of thinking, being, or behaving would allow you to live that legacy right now, every day? And, even just setting that intention every morning, when you wake up, okay, like, how am I going to be that person today? What's something, in the meeting that I have on, how could I bring that desired quality into the meeting? When I walk past somebody on the street, what might I do? Like, will I share a smile with somebody? Or, when my child really pushes my buttons, how do I want to react today? Just little things like that are pulling the bigger picture vision into the present moment. And we can use it as guideposts of how we want to be present and show up every day. And I feel, it's not easy to constantly be thinking about this stuff, because we're such busy people that we do get caught in reactive autopilot mode. But I think that it really can enhance our well-being and our performance, to be honest, if we can practice how to do that more often, because we're engaging with life and the people in it that we care about, and just everybody, intentionally, rather than just reacting from habit or autopilot, which sometimes isn't our best selves, right?
Yeah.
Called in reactivity, yeah.
And I think by being part of something bigger than yourself, like there's so many legacies that have been created, and humanity and kindness and love and being caring. There's legacies of those that have flowed through a lot of people over history and time. So you can involve yourself in a group or an organization that really carries that with them as part of their legacy, then I think it enables you to eventually find your own, because it takes the pressure off a bit. Because when you're part of something that is so fulfilling in many ways, then it allows you to maybe channel, it gives you some direction in terms of channeling your legacy as well, eh?
Yeah. And it's such a cool question to ask yourself. I'd invite everybody, once they've finished listening, just to spend a few minutes maybe jotting some thoughts down about that. What is my legacy? What do I want it to be? And, not putting any pressure on ourselves to make that happen in 5 minutes, but just asking, if we translate that back into the day-to-days, what does that look like in terms of my best life right now that I have control over? What are the bits I actually have control over? Which is typically the thoughts that we're buying into, the giving ourselves space for the emotions we're feeling, and just owning who the hell we are, giving ourselves permission to take up space in this world. That's so important, because we need you. Everybody needs your uniqueness, like we talked about last time.
Yeah, just relaxing and enjoying more of the moments and time. And I sent you a couple of things in notes, and we'll just, I guess we'll have to move quickly here. But Bradley Wiggins, who a cycling legend, won Tour de France multiple times, Olympic champion, track and time trial champion, won Tour de France and the Olympic gold medal for time trial in the same year. But he's a massive fan of the sport and a very deep thinker. But he was going on the whole experience for him in the time trial, riding through London. He was in this bubble, this emotional bubble, and then when that started to break as he got closer, because he got closer to the goal, but he found the bubble broke, and he's found himself trying way too hard. And he said the harder he tried, the harder it got, which I think has massive meaning in our lives too. That we're just putting too much pressure, as we've discussed. We're trying way too hard, potentially on things that aren't true to who we are.
Yes, right? Exactly.
And so sitting back and getting to know yourself, getting to learn more about yourself, having those deeper, meaningful conversations with yourself, writing stuff down if you need to, I guess, journaling. If you haven't got the confidence to go out and chat to someone initially, writing stuff down, having a look at it, reviewing it, talking to people, definitely, but just taking the time to learn and love yourself and laugh at yourself, and again giving yourself the time. Not now. It won't happen overnight.
Get to know yourself, eh?
Because you're pretty fucking cool. If you're listening to this podcast, you've got it going on. You've got it going on.
People can sort of go, oh, no, I'm not. But like you are, that's like, there's only one of you on this whole freaking planet. How could you not be? So
incredible. Against all odds, here we are. Maybe we should leave it there, because that's just a wonderful chat. In terms of, I always throw you on the spot in terms of parting words. I just feel as though there's going to be a part 3, because I had another question I was going to ask you, but we'll leave that for another time, because that was another deep pit of joy and love. That's what it was.
Yes.
You can have pits of joy and love, but final thoughts, Dr. Bex Bell, Doctor of Philosophy and Criminal Psychology.
Yeah. Whoa.
Final thoughts, something that can help our listeners based on a conversation or based on how you're feeling, that you think can just is relevant.
Yes. Okay. So I'm looking down because I've got my phone here, because I love these words that I actually shared in a post yesterday, and I think it just sums up everything that we've talked about in terms of just relaxing a little bit into sort of who we are, and just taking the pressure off a wee bit, just realizing that at the heart of it, that you are okay, you're not falling short in all the ways that your mind tells you that you are. And if we really want to kind of learn and grow and step into that most aligned version 4.0, or however many versions there may be, because I certainly hope that I'm still creating new versions right up until I take my last breath. You too, Ada? I don't want to stop learning.
Always.
It's I think we need to remember, though, we need to balance that out, that kind of that hungriness to learn and kind of grow and get to the next level, kind of like in a freaking video game. We need to remember these, which, by the way, I know is very inherent to the fitness world, isn't it? That constant progression. We need to balance it out with these words from Brené Brown, who, if you don't know her work, you guys, I cannot recommend it enough. Especially if you're somebody prone to putting a lot of pressure on yourself, maybe getting hooked in the old perfectionism and imposter syndrome and whatnot. But what she says is this. So everyone, repeat after us as many times as you need to in a day. No matter what gets done and how much is left undone, I am enough. Yes, I am imperfect and vulnerable and sometimes afraid, but that doesn't change the truth that I am also brave and worthy of love and belonging. that is what I would say to wrap up. Thank you, Brené Brown, for amazing words that we can all just sort of listen to over and over again and carry around with us every day, hopefully, and print off and put on the wall like I have, so I remember it.
Thank you, Brené Brown, and thank you, Dr. Bex Bell. I mean, it's wonderful. The struggle is not, the struggle for us independently is not unique, right? The struggle for us is all humanity. We all go through the same dips and dives, and that's what
which is a beautiful thing, I think.
I think it's amazing if we can just capture a little bit about the wonderful thing about connections like this, about moments like this. I know that after our last conversation, the next day I woke up just feeling better after just having a great conversation with a wonderful human such as you, Dr. Bex Bell.
Thank you so much.
No, from the heart. So yeah, the episode, as I always get to this point, just overcome with gratitude and the opportunity to converse with you, and obviously to know you, and excited about the opportunity to continue conversations, whether it's on or offline, to knowing that there are people out there like you who are so connected and to helping people, and knowing the impact that you can make and do make on a daily just by being you. And I commend you for that. And I really love you for it. So thank you, Dr. Bex Bell, for your time, for your energy, for your openness and honesty, for your love, your wisdom. Peeps, that is us, episode number 44 of the D.M.C podcast, an hour of absolute power. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I just enjoyed chatting to Bex. Take care of one another. Go out there and live this wonderful thing we call life. It's a roller coaster, but shit, aren't roller coasters fun? And if you can be anything, of course, be kind. That's us. Take care till the next episode, and we'll see you soon. Peace.
Thank you so much, Adam. Peace, everyone. Take care.